on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged review, and this is going to be my review for Justice League. And this is kind of a redux because my very first movie review ever was the Justice League movie. And one thing I've realized, and I'm going to make the little side note, that I've realized that when I first go in and watch a movie, I just kind of shut my brain off. I go in and enjoy it, and I just appreciate what it is. And then as I watch it more and more, the more I really start to critique it and tear it apart and find the things that I don't like about it or do like about it. And unfortunately, it kind of doesn't help me as a movie reviewer because when I go in and see a movie the first time, I'm just like, all right, this is cool, whatever, fine. And then I'll watch it again, I'll be like, ah, damn, I should have said that. And that's the case with this. But it did have a lot of production problems. So Zack Snyder was the original director for this. And unfortunately, his daughter committed suicide. And so he had to leave the project, and they brought in Joss Whedon. And there are definitely some things that clash between the styles with Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon. There were some other problems that they had there, too. Henry Cavill was in the middle of making Mission Impossible. And they brought him back in for reshoots. And, of course, there was a big famous controversy about, they had to digitally remove Henry Cavill's mustache because the people that were making Mission Impossible wouldn't let him shave it. So, that left a couple images of Henry Cavill's face. It just didn't quite look right. So, you do have Henry Cavill coming back as Clark Kent, Kal-El Superman. You have Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne Batman. Ezra Miller comes in as Barry Allen the Flash. Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry Aquaman. Ray Fisher as Cyborg. You have Amy Adams returning as Lois Lane. Jeremy Irons returning as Alfred. Connie Nielsen returns as Hippolyta. That would be Diana Prince's mom, Wonder Woman. You have Amber Heard coming in as Mara. And J.K. Simmons coming in as Jim Gordon. So here we have Steppenwolf, played by Syrian Hines. And this is one of the new gods. It's Darkseid's, I believe, uncle in the comics. And so he's coming to Earth looking for 3 boxes called Mother Boxes. You put these 3 Mother Boxes together, and he can turn Earth into his home world of Apocalypse. And so that's the idea. You originally see him come down at the Themyscira. They have one of the Mother Boxes. This big fight scene between the Amazonians and Steppenwolf. And it's funny because I heard people say like they didn't feel like Steppenwolf was ever a threat in the movie. And I'm like, how? He obliterates everywhere he goes. He goes to Themyscira, tears apart the Amazonians, gets that Mother Box. He goes down to Atlantis, tears them apart, gets their Mother Box. It's like, I don't see how anybody did not feel like Steppenwolf was the threat, but apparently some people didn't. So, the Justice League, Batman is putting the team together. He's going around. He's trying to recruit all these guys. And unfortunately, there was a mandate by the movie studio Warner Brothers that they didn't want any movie over 2 hours long. So this was 2 hours and 1 minute with credits. And that did hurt the movie because you just get clips of quick introductions for most of these characters. I actually think the most fleshed out character was Cyborg, played by Ray Fisher. And he did really, really well with it. I really love Cyborg. I love Cyborg in the comics. I have a bunch of Teen Titan comics. Great character to have. So, unfortunately, it was kind of choppy and it was a little bit rushed. And you could tell that. That was one issue I had with the movie. It ultimately leads to they get this Mother Box, this last one. Cyborg grabs it before Steppenwolf can. And Batman's gears start turning. And he's like, you know what? I wonder if this Mother Box can reanimate Superman. Because, he died in Batman v Superman at the end by Doomsday. And so there's this big argument, and Wonder Woman thinks that they should just leave it alone. And Batman's like, well, we have to try. And so that's what they do. They wind up going to the Kryptonian ship, digging up Superman's body and putting him in that fluid that they rose Doomsday with. They drop the mother box, Flash charges it with electricity, and then boom, Superman's alive. And that was about halfway through the movie. And I gotta tell you, this was one of my favorite parts of this movie. It was absolutely an epic scene. Superman comes up, but he's a little disoriented, doesn't exactly remember who he is. And so Aquaman's freaking out. The whole rest of the Justice League is there. And there's this fight that just shows how much more powerful Superman is than every other person on the Justice League. I mean, it was really funny. He just starts wiping them out. There was one scene where Wonder Woman tries to swing something at him. He grabs Wonder Woman with one hand. He's got Aquaman by the other hand. Cyborg tries to fly and, like push him back. He doesn't even budge. And then you see Flash run around, of course, Flash being the Flash. He moves so fast that nobody can see him except for Superman. So he's running around behind Superman, and you see Superman's eye turn first, and you see the Flash's face just go blank. And then Superman turns his head and throws everybody else and tries to hit the Flash, and he winds up like just shoulder nudging him. But it was really great. It was very well choreographed. I loved the whole scene. Eventually he sees Batman. He's like, "You won't let me live. You won't let me die." He's like, Batman says, "The world needs you." Superman's like, "But does it need you?" And then he says, "Tell me something. Do you bleed?" And I was like, yes, that was great. But then they kind of screwed it up because they brought in Lois Lane and, he sees her. Things start to click and he just drops Batman and he takes off with Lois Lane. And then Batman's laying on the ground. He's like, "Yeah, I think something's bleeding." That was another issue I had. Making Batman the comedy relief doesn't work for me. There was a lot of comedy in this movie that they threw in. They tried to make it more lighthearted. I honestly feel that was the wrong approach. One of the things that was great about DC is they did have these serious, dark characters. You kind of change who they were a little bit, and that is going to take the hardcore fans away. So the Justice League, they go hunt down Steppenwolf by themselves. Eventually Superman comes to, and at the end he comes to help them out. They take out Steppenwolf. And one of the things I really loved is Steppenwolf had this huge axe with him. He swung it at Wonder Woman. And then Superman actually uses his frost breath in this movie, which I thought was cool. We haven't seen that in a very, very long time. Freezes the axe, Wonder Woman smashes it. And then all these parademons that are like these soldiers that feed off of fear. Steppenwolf is afraid now. They all start to attack him. He goes up this boom tube back to Apocalypse. Very, very cool there. I did like some of the stuff. Steppenwolf was a big CGI character, and people had a huge problem with that. I don't. These are fantastical creatures, and they look different. They're, taller than any man can be. So I don't have the issue with the CGI. I just don't. There were times it was noticeable with taking the mustache off Superman. I'll give him that. But last time I did this review, like I said, this was my first movie review for the channel. I was a bit nice and pretty lenient, and I was like, you know what, it was a fun movie. I didn't have the problems with it that everybody had. But upon watching it, however many times I've watched it at this point, there are things that I do have issue with. And there were things that, I don't know that made sense at all. So at the beginning of the movie, Batman sees this robber, and then he grabs him with a rope, and he's hanging this robber over the edge of a building. He's like, "What do you want?" And he's like, "Fear." They feed off of it, talking about the parademons. And then there's this big conversation with Batman and Alfred on an earpiece, and Batman's talking about this invasion, and just talking about it plainly in front of this dude that just tried to rob a store, and he's giving him all this crazy information. Come on now. So that didn't really work for me. Another thing that I really didn't like was changing the Flash into the very handsome Jewish boy, which was what Ezra Miller was quoted as saying in the movie. And I'm like, you don't change the character to fit the actor, you change the actor to fit the character. And I really didn't like that they did the reverse there. I didn't really like making funny Batman. Like I said, Batman has always been a very serious character, always dark, brooding, and there's even been big moments in the comics where like Joker got him to laugh. So that didn't really work for me. Another thing that really kind of threw me off was Wonder Woman with her quick time motions, like being super fast, actually looked better than the Flash did. And that was kind of disappointing because I was really excited about the Flash. I love the Flash character. I liked him overall. I liked Ezra Miller overall. But they made him klutzy, like he's always tripping. And they made the animation or, the CGI for Wonder Woman running and moving quickly better than the Flash. Another thing that I kind of had an issue with, speaking of Wonder Woman, was there was a scene, like her first scene was there was this group of terrorists that were about to blow up a museum with a bunch of kids in it. And she picks up one of the terrorists and he's like, "We're a group of terrorists. Terrorists don't call themselves terrorists." Just a thought. Superman, Lois Lane asked what he was like, from him coming back from the dead. And their great response was itchy. I don't even know I don't need to say anything else about that. That was just bad. The 1989 or 1990 Batman movie, that score was kind of added into this movie a bit. And some people were like, don't say it doesn't fit into the movie. Don't be a dick. Well, I'm going to be a dick. It didn't fit into the movie. Just my opinion. Like, I like that score. I thought it fit great with the original Batman. It just didn't work here. I didn't like it. So that is Justice League as a whole. You had epic fight scenes, though. You had some really great moments, especially with Cyborg. And when Superman came back up, I thought that was amazing. You also get a mid-credit scene where Superman and the Flash are going to race. They've done this like 3 times in the comics, like major issues where they had the race with Superman and the Flash. You never get to see who wins, ever, including in the movie. So the concept is Flash is supposed to be way faster than Superman, but you never see that. He always lets him tie. Then you get what is probably the greatest end credit scene in a mediocre movie that I've ever seen. This might be my favorite end credit scene ever. So Joe Magdalena, or whatever the hell his name is, comes in. And so what you have is you're in the jail where Lex Luthor was. You see this bald guy, turns around. It's not Lex Luthor. It's some crazy guy laughing. Lex Luthor is on his yacht. And Deathstroke shows up, dude. I've waited to see a live action Deathstroke for a very long time. And Joe, like I said, Magdalena or whatever, I can't get his last name, comes in as Slade Wilson Deathstroke. And it's a very quick scene where Lex Luthor is saying, well, shouldn't we have a league of our own too? But Slade Wilson takes his helmet off. And damn, dude, it looks like a live action comic version should. Like, it was greatness. So I love that. I loved seeing Deathstroke like that. That was greatness. The movie overall, it had its good points. It had its bad points for sure. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I think I gave it much higher than that last time because, like I said, the first time I watch a movie, I don't really look at everything like I do when I've watched it 10 times. And this movie just, there were a lot of issues with it, and I understand there were a lot of production problems with it that may have caused that, but issues nonetheless. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. There were great things about it, and I mean great things about it, but there was a lot of issues too. So that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz, Kaged Nation, out.